Well, last week I made a video asking about should the Calgary Flames make a play for Oliver Ekman-Larsson, or OEL, he's also known for. So you can see that video right up there. So I decided this week I should make a video asking the question, should the Calgary Flames make a play for Darcy Kuemper, the other big fish that the Arizona Coyotes are looking to potentially cash out, as the Arizona Coyotes, a combination of losing draft picks from previous trades and the fact that this year they will not have their own second round pick, and in 2021 the Arizona Coyotes will not have their own first round pick because of the combine training violation penalty. And definitely kind of sort of made sense why general manager John Chayka definitely moved on, but there's definitely been rumors that the Calgary Flames were in for Oliver Ekman-Larsson, and I personally, if you look in that video, I say the Calgary Flames should make a play for him, especially with all the pending unrestricted free agents that is on the market right now, and word is that many of them will test the market. But the other piece is Darcy Kuemper. Should the Calgary Flames make a play for Darcy Kuemper? It sounds like the Flames are not sold on David Riddick on being potentially the number one goalie. And all we're hearing, especially if you look at down the stretch and in the playoffs, with the exception of Game 6 against the Dallas Stars, where we had, as of this recording, that same Dallas Stars team is now playing for the Stanley Cup, as the Stanley Cup Finals is about to begin, as they will be taking on the Tampa Bay Lightning. But the Calgary Flames played Cam Talbot down the stretch, and it sounds like that they have intentions to re-sign him. I think Cam Talbot has done very well, given the role that he originally was brought in, and as a potential 1A, 1B. Darcy Kuemper would, I would say, be an upgrade for, let's say, if we brought back Cam Talbot and bringing Darcy Kuemper, based on how Darcy Kuemper played this past season with the Arizona Coyotes and in the same playoffs, as he's definitely the big reason why the Arizona Coyotes, where they were welcomed to play in the 2014 playoff, was a big reason why Arizona pulled off the upset against the Nashville Predators in the play-in series Stanley Cup qualifier, where Arizona won that Game 4 in overtime. However, he would say, other than being shell-shocked in Game 5 against Colorado Avalanche, it was the Colorado Avalanche and the Arizona Coyotes in that series. But Darcy Kuemper saved them from being less swept against Colorado Avalanche. But the Calgary Flames have been rumored to be on both Oliver Ekman-Larsson and Darcy Kuemper. However, I would say Oliver Ekman-Larsson requires a longer term commitment when it comes to contract. However, Darcy Kuemper, the price might be a little higher for him based on his body of work that he played with the Arizona Coyotes from his time when he got acquired from the Los Angeles Kings and this playoffs. That there's rumors that there was a tweet out in the Twitterverse that the Calgary Flames, as of right now, will have the 19th overall pick in the first round, but there was apparently word that the Arizona Coyotes are mulling over a trade for Darcy Kuemper. And I mean, both Alberta teams are definitely on him, because both Alberta teams are showing desire that they would like to upgrade the goaltending, and also there's many other teams as well potentially inquiring on him, because he is cap hit, but he only has 2 years left on his contract with the extension that he signed that will be paying him $4.5 million for this season and next season. It's definitely a shorter term commitment. However, the body of work has been fairly recent that this is a chance for the Arizona Coyotes to maybe recoup a pick, maybe a prospect or a cheaper option. Because I would think, let's say for example, if the Calgary Flames were to make a play for Darcy Kuemper, could we throw in the first round pick? That would be the 19th overall pick. And I'm going to assume that if we are looking at keeping Cam Talbot. We haven't signed him to a new contract, or neither any pending unrestricted free agent yet as of this recording. As I understand now, that the free agent frenzy will begin at 10 Mountain on Friday, October 9th, but there is going to be no courting period where you have 5-day window to potentially woo a player to come play for your side that we've had the last couple of years, where there was a little less surprise about players going, elsewhere, and then they sign, so that mysterious factor would be back. But this is a case where I make these videos where I talk about should we make a play, being as in they are under contract, what price could we pay? I mean, would we be willing to pay a first round pick? That would be the 19th overall pick. And I'm going to assume David Riddick. Because if we're going to try to keep Cam Talbot, could we ship a first and David Riddick to get Darcy Kuemper? Because the Arizona Coyotes are looking at cutting their payroll, their salary commitments to players next season. And that's why Oliver Ekman-Larsson and Darcy Kuemper are the two biggest assets. Not necessarily the most expensive, but the biggest assets that would give them potentially a biggest return. However, with more teams on Darcy Kuemper, I would still say Oliver Ekman-Larsson still would be a great asset for example, the Calgary Flames pickup. But it's the 7 years left at $8.25 million that might, potentially scare off some teams. But all teams always want to look for a starting goalie, or maybe a backup, or 1A, 1B, which would definitely be the case if the Calgary Flames go that direction. If more teams are on them, there might be a risk of overpaying for Darcy Kuemper. And also, what also raises the speculation that the other goalies that the Arizona Coyotes have in their system, well, they have Antti Ranta, who still has 1 year left at $4.5 million. He's a great goalie when he's healthy. That's been an issue with the Arizona Coyotes, and they recently signed, who played some time this season, actually is from Calgary, is Aiden Hill. He recently signed a new contract with the Arizona Coyotes, so that raises the speculation a lot more that Darcy Kuemper could be on the way. And if you read on the Twitterverse, is he on the move? Should we make a play for him? I mean, what picks or could we part with? Or I always think ideally, with this being a deep draft, that if we could defer, maybe throwing in the first round pick in 2021, could that be good enough? Could we throw in a 2021 first round pick, knowing that Arizona coming in will not have a pick already? I mean, yeah, they won't have this season from the trade, but the next season due to the penalty. I'm going to assume if they're going to trade away Darcy Kuemper, they're going to want maybe a goalie in return. And then the other goalies that the Calgary Flames have in the system, well, I don't think we're going to part with Anton Zargadulin. Maybe, but he was the starter with Stockton, and he looks intriguing that we signed from the KHL a couple seasons ago. John Gillies, I'm going to think his time is almost up with the franchise, considering we drafted him back in 2011 and he hasn't seemed to take that next step. We've already moved on from Mason McDonald, the goalie we drafted in 2014, and it stings that 2 picks later, it was Thatcher Demko that was selected by Vancouver. Thatcher Demko, I think, would look a little better in Flames colors right now than Mason McDonald, if you ask me. Especially how Thatcher Demko also looked in the playoffs. And then we still have Tyler Parsons, and we still, as I know, we still got Nick Schneider. But then Dustin Wolf, that's the goalie we drafted in the 7th round last season, who won the WHL Goalie of the Year. Well, I think Dustin Wolf is probably the highest prospect that we have right now that we're definitely not going to part with. But he's still a few years away before we even seriously consider him going on the bench. So, I mean, Darcy Kuemper could potentially be a short-term goalie, but there's still some risk on if he moves again. Will his strong play still continue, especially if more teams know his tendencies? As if we took a look at Darcy Kuemper's numbers, as he has played in the league for fairly well. I mean, he was originally drafted 101st overall back in 2009 by the Minnesota Wild, and he's a 30-year-old goalie, so he'd be 32, which is a couple years younger than Cam Talbot. when he becomes an unrestricted free agent. Not as much of a long-term commitment, let's say, with Oliver Ekman-Larsson, but if you look at his career stats, overall in the NHL, he has played 215 games. He has a 96 wins, 72 losses, 29 overtime shield losses for overall record, and he has 18 shutouts. But he had 5 shutouts in the 18-19 season for the Arizona Coyotes, and he had 2 shutouts this past season. His goals against average overall in his career is pretty good, considering how he's kind of been a backup slash 1B goalie at 246 goals against average and a 918 save percentage. And then his overall playoff numbers, because he did play with the Minnesota Wild first, and then he went to the Los Angeles Kings in free agency, and then he got traded to the Arizona Coyotes in 17-18. Well, in 18 playoff games overall, blended from Minnesota and Arizona this season, including the play-in series and the first round against Colorado. In 18 playoff games, he's 7-6, and he has a 286 goals against average and a 913 save percentage. I mean, this last playoffs, he's 4-5. About 347 goals against average, but that took a beating in Game 5 when Arizona won. I think it was 7-1 that game. But he still has a 913 save percentage, because I know that in Game 4, where he saved Arizona from at least being swept against Colorado, he made 50 saves that game. So we have a goalie that has some small body of work. This past season with Arizona, in 29 games, he was 16-11-2 with a 222 goals against average, 928 save percentage with 2 shutouts. But the season before, Arizona in 18-19, a lot of the time, Antti Raanta was looked to be the goalie, but Darcy Kuemper was played in because of the injury. In 55 games, and this is the 18-19 season with Arizona, he was 27-20-8 with 233 goals against average and a 925 save percentage and 5 shutouts. So he has 7 of his 18 career shutouts with the Arizona Coyotes. And check out these numbers for the Los Angeles Kings when he signed there. In 19 games, he's 10-1-3 with 3 shutouts, 10 goals against average, and 932 save percentage. So our body worked, but he was backing up with Jonathan Quick in Los Angeles. So he has, some pedigree, a small body work of being a great goalie, where he could potentially be a starter, or at least a 1A, 1B option as a platoon, because I think gone are the days. I would say in the 90s, definitely as a hockey fan, looking back, we were definitely blessed with great goalies, with Patrick Waugh, Dominic Hasek, and Martin Brodeur, where you have this dominant goalie that can handle playing 70-plus games, and then also carry them to Stanley Finals or win some Stanley Cups. I know Dominic Hasek, he didn't play on the teams with Buffalo that has much offense and as talent as, let's say, a Martin Brodeur or Patrick Waugh, but Dominic Hasek won 6 Vezina trophies. And even here in Calgary, when we had Mika Kiprusoff, but eventually got to the point, even with those goalies that I mentioned, as you get older, they needed to play less games to be as effective. And that's why I think gone are the days, especially in the salary cap era, that you're not going to see a goalie that's going to play 70 games a season ever again, because the parity, the playoff races, and the fact that you don't want to have a burnt out goalie going into the playoffs. And also you have to mention as well that this past season the Calgary Flames spent $5.5 million under 2 goalies, as both David Rittich and Cam Talbot made a cap hit $2.75 million. Well, David Rittich still has 1 year left on his contract, so that's why I think he is potentially going to get traded if we make a play for a goalie like Darcy Kuemper. That if we re-sign Cam Talbot for the same price, we're going to still be spending more on goaltending, but it would be an upgrade. So I'll ask, what do you think? Should the Calgary Flames make a play for Darcy Kuemper? It might be a little easier for the Calgary Flames to make the trade. It depends on how many other teams are circling in on knocking on his door for his services, which if you have a lot of teams knocking on the door, that his price is going to go up. And Arizona definitely is going to try to maximize some assets with their biggest names right now to do a... It sounds like what they're probably going to try to do is do a quick fire sale and rebuild to cut their salaries down and maybe get those draft picks that they've traded away and lost. And that's why I still think it might be easier. We might have the assets to part with for Darcy Kuemper as opposed to Oliver Ekman-Larsson. I mean, I could get greedy and say I want both. I would definitely love to see Darcy Kuemper and Oliver Ekman-Larsson both here in Calgary next season, as I think it would be an upgrade for solidifying the top four in Oliver Ekman-Larsson and having the platoon option. I would say it sounds like if we were signing Cam Talbot and have Darcy Kuemper, even if we had David Rittich and Darcy Kuemper, if we decide to move on from Talbot. But how much of assets do we have to part with, and would that be worth it to make a play for either one of those players? And this last part, we'll kind of joke here, is that Matthew Tkachuk, he's good buddies with David Rittich and Darcy Kuemper. And Matthew Tkachuk, if you recall back in late November, when Calgary had their low point this past season, they fought. So maybe they have to do some making up if, let's say, if we decide to move on from Rittich and brought in Darcy Kuemper. I'm sure it's all good now, it's the emotion of the game. But I just say, what do you think? Both with the Oliver Ekman-Larsson video and the Darcy Kuemper video. Should the Calgary Flames make a play for him? And what assets do you think we have to take advantage of the Arizona Coyotes wanting to cut down salary? I know the Calgary Flames, I hear eternally as well, is looking at cutting down maybe some salary as well, but it's also trying to not mortgage too much of the future, especially on defense. I think the Flames need to pick up some picks in the draft, and also that's why I like the Oliver Ekman-Larsson. When it comes to should we make play for, I'm going to say Oliver Ekman-Larsson, I would want a little more than Darcy Kuemper, but they're both great options, and if we can get both, that would be great. But let's not try to sell too much of the farm either right now to get these two. And there's only 2 seasons on the contract with Darcy Kuemper. That it depends on where his career goes, what his cap hit will be, but it's definitely an attractive option for many teams to acquire his services because of the cap hit, his body work, especially the last couple seasons, and the shorter term contract. So what do you think? So as I say, if you want to follow along with this Calgary sports fans journey, home of the Flames, Hitmen, Roughnecks, and Stampeders. I mostly talk Calgary sports on my channel, but I also do have personal vlogs, attempt to call me, and I also do share my experiences when I'm on the road or at a sport event. So if it all sounds like it'd be interesting to watch, to follow along with this Calgary sports fans journey, you know what you need to do, just make sure you hit like, subscribe. I also have my other social media links down in the description below for other ways you can follow me and maybe get some updates on my channel on future content that I plan to make. Let's say when I plan to do the next episode in my Remember the Calgary series, where I talk about Calgary sports teams in the past. So as I say here, go Flames go, and just another speculative video talking about a player that's under contract right now that Calgary's rumored to be connected to on potentially making a play for a star defenseman and a star goalie. And interestingly, with the David Rittich and Darcy Kuemper connection, well, this past season, Darcy Kuemper was originally named to the Pacific All-Stars team, but he could not make it, so David Rittich took a spot. So definitely another interesting spin to put on this as well. But that's just my personal speculation. So go Flames go, and I'll see you in the next video.